I told Marcus I only married him because the plus sign showed up on that stupid stick. Everyone assumes that confession proves I'm a monster who never deserved Maya. My sister says I brought this on myself. The court-appointed therapist wrote that I showed callous disregard for family integrity. But here's what they're all missing: admitting I settled wasn't my biggest mistake. It was just the first honest thing I'd said in years, and it opened a door I couldn't slam shut. The real truth, the one that cost me everything, involves a burner phone I kept hidden in Maya's diaper bag, a falsified email to Child Protective Services, and the fact that I was already packing a suitcase for Puerto Vallarta when Marcus's lawyer called. But I'm getting ahead of myself, which is exactly what I always do when I'm scared. I was 32 when my obgyn, a brisk woman named Dr. Chen, looked at my lab results and said my fertility window was slamming shut faster than average. That medical countdown clock became an obsession. My friends were all partnered off, posting nursery reveals and gender reveals and every other kind of reveal, while I was swiping through dating apps where men my age wanted 25-year-olds or casual situationships. Marcus was different. We met at a beer garden in October, him drinking a Hefeweizen and reading actual paper pages of The New Yorker, which I initially found pretentious until I saw he was reading the Borovitz report and actually laughing. He was stable, predictable, a structural engineer who owned his condo and called his mother every Sunday like clockwork. When I told him about my fertility situation on our third date, he didn't flinch. He just squeezed my hand and said, "That's heavy. Want to talk about it?" The vulnerability felt like a drug. I told him everything: the failed engagement in my 20s, the eggs I wasn't making, the sudden terror that I'd built a career instead of a life. He listened. He remembered. 2 weeks later, he showed up with a printout about fertility-friendly diets and a book on modern motherhood that his sister had recommended. By Christmas, we were spending every weekend together. My best friend Priya warned me that I was moving too fast, that needing a baby wasn't the same as wanting this particular man. I brushed her off. Marcus was kind. He remembered how I took my coffee and never made me feel like my ambition was something to apologize for. When the pregnancy test came positive in March, I felt this wave of relief that almost drowned out the panic. He proposed the next day, down on one knee in our kitchen, holding out his grandmother's ring. I said yes. Everyone cried. My mother posted the ultrasound next to the ring photo within hours. The wedding was planned for June before I started showing. I told myself love could grow. That stability was its own form of passion. That I'd read about women who learned to adore their husbands after children. The first hint of trouble came when I caught myself scrolling through old photos of my college ex, a poet who'd broken my heart but made me feel alive. I deleted them all, as if that would delete the feeling. The second hint was how I introduced Marcus to colleagues. "This is my husband, Marcus. We got pregnant, so..." Trailing off with a laugh that sounded nervous even to me. But I powered through, focusing on crib reviews and daycare waitlists. The snowball decision was letting my mother plan the entire wedding without Marcus's input. She excluded his sister from the bridal party, chose readings from a church he didn't attend, and booked a venue that required a 3-hour drive for his elderly grandparents. He protested gently. I told him it was easier this way, that my mother was paying, that we had enough to worry about. He conceded like he always did. My first questionable thought flickered when I caught myself thinking, good, now he owes me. The wedding went off without a hitch, a perfect June day at the vineyard my mother chose. Marcus smiled through every photograph, his hand on my barely there bump, looking exactly like the supportive husband everyone expected him to be. I honeymooned through a fog of exhaustion and hormones, calculating how many hours until I could pretend to need a nap and just lie in the dark, alone. My first questionable decision came 3 months in. Marcus found me researching apartments in the city, 2 bedrooms with good school districts. "Shouldn't we look together?" he asked, leaning over my shoulder. I closed the laptop. "I'm just getting a sense of things," I said. "You have your job, I have mine. I want to make sure we're not stuck somewhere because of your commute." The lie slid out so easily. What I really wanted was a backup plan. A place that was mine, not ours. A door with a lock he didn't have a key to. I doubled down on my flawed logic when Priya questioned me about it later, insisting I was just being pragmatic. The second questionable decision was the credit card. I opened one in my maiden name, had the statements sent to my office. Marcus and I had agreed on complete financial transparency, but I told myself I needed a safety net. For the baby, of course. For emergencies he didn't need to worry about. I bought maternity clothes on it, then a stroller that was on sale that I never showed him. The balance grew, and with it, this secret life I was building inside our marriage. The rationalization was constant. I was protecting myself, preparing for the possibility that I'd need to leave. Never mind that Marcus had never given me a reason. Never mind that he was, by all accounts, a devoted partner who rubbed my feet without being asked and attended every prenatal appointment with a list of questions. First small consequence arrived when Priya visited and saw the stroller box in my office. "Why is this here and not at your place?" she asked. I made some excuse about surprise baby showers. She looked at me the way she had when I dated that married professor in grad school, a look that said she saw through me. "You're lying," she said flatly. It was the first time someone had called me out directly. At the baby shower my mother threw, I found myself cornered by Marcus's aunt, who asked if I was happy. "Of course," I said, plastering on a smile. "We're so blessed." She studied my face. "You don't look blessed," she said quietly. "You look trapped." I laughed it off, made a joke about pregnancy hormones, but her words burrowed in. The dramatic irony was this: everyone could see the cracks except me, or maybe I saw them and called them something else. After Maya was born, the performance became harder to maintain. She was colicky, screaming for hours, and Marcus was patient in a way that made me feel defective. He'd walk her in circles while I sat on the couch, numb, scrolling through photos of my old life. I stopped breastfeeding at 6 weeks, telling him my supply was low, when really I just wanted my body back, something that wasn't shared. He never questioned it, just started doing night feeds with formula, his eyes gentle. "You should get some rest," he'd say. I'd go to bed and lie awake, hating his kindness. The third questionable decision was the job interview. A firm in San Francisco had reached out about a position I'd applied for before the pregnancy. I went, telling Marcus it was a conference. The salary was triple what I made. They wanted someone willing to relocate. I said I needed to think about it, but I was already calculating how to make it work with a baby, how to leave without looking like the villain. The hidden action I took earlier was accepting the job. I'd signed the offer letter, submitted my resignation to my current firm effective after maternity leave. I'd found a preschool in Bernal Heights. I'd been planning to leave when Maya turned 1. When I got home, Marcus had cleaned the entire house and made dinner. "How was the conference?" he asked. I kissed his cheek. "Boring," I said. "Let's eat." The first time Maya smiled, it was at Marcus. I caught it on camera, posted it with a caption about Daddy's girl, but I felt this surge of something ugly and petty. Why not me? Why didn't she smile for me? The thought shocked me, but it didn't go away. It metastasized. I started taking pictures of Marcus when he was tired, when he looked frustrated, when his patience frayed. I told myself it was for memories, but I was building a case I didn't know I'd need yet. The confession came when Maya was 8 months old. Marcus had been promoted, working longer hours, and I was alone with a baby who still wouldn't sleep through the night. I was running on 3 hours of sleep, my milk had dried up, and my body felt like a stranger's. We fought about something stupid, dishes in the sink, maybe, or his mother coming over too much, or the fact that I'd forgotten to pay the electric bill and we'd spent a night in the dark. The words erupted out of me. I only married you because I was pregnant. I settled for a comfortable life because I was terrified of doing this alone. The silence that followed was absolute. Marcus didn't yell, he just looked at me like I'd cracked his chest open with my bare hands. "I need to think," he said, and he left. He didn't come back that night. When he returned, he was already distant, already gathering evidence. I didn't know it then, but that confession was the first domino. Within a week, he was sleeping in the guest room. Within a month, he'd hired a lawyer. I got the papers on a Tuesday, Maya napping in her crib while I sat on our kitchen floor and screamed into a dish towel. The deeper revelation, the one that made everything worse, was that Marcus had been documenting everything for months. He had screenshots of my apartment searches, records of my secret credit card, because he'd opened a piece of mail that came to the house by accident. He had a journal where he'd logged every time I seemed distant, every time I introduced him awkwardly, every time I prioritized work over family. The truth bomb he'd been talking to Priya, who told him she was worried about my stability. I'd confided in her about the San Francisco interview, about feeling trapped, about wondering if I'd made a mistake. She'd gone to him out of concern for the baby. I felt utterly betrayed, but also, worse, seen. He'd known everything or suspected enough to build a fortress of proof. When I confronted him about the journal, he was calm. "I needed to protect myself," he said. "And Maya." My own mother testified for him in court, describing how I'd always been restless, how I'd needed grounding. The damage wasn't just that I was losing my marriage. It was that everyone had been watching my performance and calling it what it was, a lie. Someone discovering part of the truth came when my old boss called as a character witness. She mentioned I'd resigned before maternity leave. Marcus's lawyer pounced. So you had no intention of returning to your job, you'd already made other plans. I could see the judge making notes. The tease of something even worse came when the therapist asked about my family history and I froze, thinking of the pregnancy I'd terminated at 24 that I'd never told anyone about. The consequences escalated faster than I could manage them. My lawyer, a sad-eyed woman named Deborah, said my best hope was to prove I'd been suffering from postpartum depression. It's not a crime to struggle, she told me, but I'd never seen a therapist. I'd never asked for help. To the court, it looked like I'd been fine until the moment Marcus filed, at which point I'd suddenly discovered mental illness as a strategy. The social dimension kicked in when Marcus's aunt started a whisper campaign in our community, telling other mothers at the baby yoga class I sometimes attended that I was unstable. Invitations dried up, playdates canceled. I saw a group text I'm not supposed to have seen where someone wrote, "Would you leave your baby with someone who admitted they only got married out of convenience?" And the responding emojis were all knives and coffins. I tried to fight back. I recorded Marcus losing his temper once when Maya wouldn't stop crying. He raised his voice, slammed a cabinet door. I sent it to my lawyer, triumphant. She listened and sighed. "He sounds like a tired parent," she said, "not an abuser." My attempt to come clean to my own mother backfired spectacularly. "I think I need to tell the court I was depressed," I said over coffee. She stirred her latte slowly. "Honey," she said, "you've never been depressed, you've been disappointed. There's a difference." The distinction felt like a death sentence. I was digging my hole deeper, trying to find some narrative that would stick. I started posting carefully curated photos on Instagram, me and Maya at the park, smiling. The captions were desperate, so blessed, cherishing every moment. The comments were supportive but hollow. The breadcrumb I dropped, the hint of the ultimate secret, came in a session with the court-appointed therapist. She asked if there were any major life events I'd never processed. I thought about the pregnancy I'd terminated in my 20s. I said no. The situation spiraled when Marcus's lawyer subpoenaed my medical records and found I'd lied about my pregnancy history. The worst decision I made was telling the therapist the termination never happened, creating a paper trail of lies. I tried to fix things by sending Marcus an apology letter, but his lawyer used it as proof I was unstable and seeking validation. The social worker assigned to our case began documenting every interaction, nodding that I seemed performative rather than genuinely engaged. My desperation became its own evidence. I spiraled in unexpected ways, missing appointments, showing up late, once forgetting Maya's diaper bag entirely. The breaking point stretched across months of supervised visits and evaluations. The first crack was the custody evaluation day, a 7-hour process where I played with Maya while a psychologist watched from a two-way mirror. I was so nervous I couldn't stop talking, filling every silence with chatter about developmental milestones. Maya, sensing my anxiety, wouldn't come to me. She crawled to the evaluator instead. I sat there, rejected by my own child, and felt my composure shatter. The public facade became impossible. At work, I made mistakes, missing deadlines, snapping at junior staff. My boss called me in, concerned. "You're not yourself," she said. I wanted to tell her I had no idea who myself was anymore. The night before the first custody hearing, I got drunk alone and texted Marcus, "Please don't take her from me." He didn't respond. The next morning, he arrived at court with printed screenshots of my text, plus others I'd sent when angry, ones where I'd called him a controlling asshole, where I'd said I wished I'd never met him. "Demonstrates instability and hostility," his lawyer said smoothly. My lawyer could only counter with my clean criminal record, but the damage was done. The emotional peak came when the judge asked me directly if I believed Marcus was a good father. I had a choice. I could tell the truth that he was patient and devoted or continue trying to win. "He's adequate," I said, the word hung in the air, poisonously inadequate itself. That was when I knew I'd lost, not just custody but any chance at redemption. The near confession I pulled back from was this: I almost told the judge about the San Francisco job, about the apartment I'd researched, about the secret credit card. I almost said, "I'm broken, not dangerous." But I didn't. I sat there silent, as the judge granted Marcus temporary full custody with supervised visits twice a week. Maya was too young to understand, but when the evaluator took her from my arms, she cried for him. That's what broke me. My support system crumbled when Priya finally told me she couldn't have me in her house anymore. My mother stopped returning calls. My father sent a single text, "I hope you get help." Someone got hurt when I missed a supervised visit, claiming I was sick, but the therapist had seen me posting at a bar. The judge asked at a review hearing, "Do you understand your actions show a pattern of manipulation?" I deflected with tears. I pushed away my last friend by accusing her of not trying hard enough. The setup for the biggest revelation came when Marcus's lawyer requested my travel records. The worst revelation came out in pieces. First, the burner phone. Marcus's lawyer produced it, found in Maya's diaper bag. I'd bought it to coordinate with the job, but also to text a man I'd met at a conference. Emotional affair, the lawyer said. Then the falsified email. I'd created a fake Gmail in Marcus's name and sent myself, "You need to get help, you're scaring me." I'd forwarded it to my lawyer, claiming he'd threatened me. Marcus's team traced the IP to my office. Attempt to manufacture evidence of abuse, they called it. But the final piece, what made the judge's face harden into pity mixed with disgust, was the suitcase. Inside, plane tickets for me and Maya one way, a cashier's check for $20,000, a new birth certificate application half filled with a different last name. Flight risk, the judge said. The full confession was me on the stand, crying, admitting I'd been planning to leave since before Maya was born. I'd never wanted Marcus. I'd wanted a father for my child. The justifications poured out my fertility, my fear, the way society tells women they're incomplete. The judge listened stoically as I described researching states with favorable maternal custody laws, saving money, lying to everyone. The most damning detail was the timeline in a journal, found by Marcus's private investigator. It detailed my plan to leave when Maya was 14 months old, including notes about framing it as protecting her from an emotionally distant father. The first major consequence was the court issuing a 2-year order preventing me from filing without approval and requiring me to pay Marcus's legal fees. The final hidden element was that I'd contacted a lawyer about terminating Marcus's parental rights before he filed. I'd been planning to leave and cut him out completely. The fallout was absolute supervised visits only, mandatory therapy, a guardian ad litem assigned to Maya. She reported Maya seemed anxious around me, didn't recognize me as her primary caregiver. The aftermath was a wasteland. I moved in with Priya, who'd stopped speaking to me after the hearing but couldn't turn me away. My job put me on leave, compassionate, they said, but my boss's eyes were cold. 2 weeks later, they eliminated my position. The social fallout was immediate. Marcus's aunt posted a photo of him and Maya at the park safe and sound with the parent who puts her first. The comments were a chorus of praise. Someone tagged me in a meme about women who trap men with pregnancy. I deactivated my account. My mother called once. "Maybe this is for the best," she said, "until you figure yourself out." The parenting classes were humiliating, sitting with mothers who'd hit their children, listening to them talk about triggers while I stewed in my own damage. The psychological evaluation was worse. The doctor diagnosed adjustment disorder, writing I showed narcissistic traits with poor coping mechanisms. That report became public record. My lawyer said I could appeal in a year, maybe, if I met every condition. The unexpected consequence came when my firm officially let me go. They couldn't have someone with my baggage in a client-facing role. The moment of genuine self-awareness broke through at 3 a.m. in Priya's guest room, looking at photos of Maya on Marcus's Instagram. I realized I wasn't crying because I missed her. I was crying because I'd built my life around avoiding loneliness and ended up more alone than ever. The current state, I see Maya 4 hours a month, supervised in a beige room. She calls Marcus Dada and reaches for him. I smile and wave. He now has full custody, permanent. My credit is destroyed from the secret card. My professional network has evaporated. I spend most days in Priya's guest room, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'll ever get beyond this. Why am I telling this now? Because yesterday I saw Marcus and Maya at Target. I was buying toothpaste, hiding behind paper towels. Maya clapped while Marcus made silly faces. A woman stood nearby, laughing. They looked like a family. The life I'd manufactured without me. I wanted to hate him, but felt only hollow recognition that he'd been the parent she deserved. What I've learned is imperfect. I understand now that settling wasn't the crime, trying to build an escape hatch while pretending to build a home was. The moral ambiguity. I still believe women face impossible choices. My fertility panic was real, but I used 2 human beings as means to an end. So here's my question: was I a bad mother who made bad choices or a desperate woman who broke? The court decided. My family decided, you decide, I won't defend myself. But I won't disappear. The trigger was seeing Maya smile at that woman, the way she used to smile for me before I made myself a stranger. I need people to understand the story is never just what it looks like from the outside. But I need to stop lying, especially to myself. Especially about the fact that I'm still not sure, even now, even after everything, whether I regret the choices or just the fact that they failed.